Have you ever wondered what really happened before the Great Flood? That ancient time, where the first civilizations appeared and disappeared almost without leaving a trace. Today, we're going to talk about something surprising and revealing: the 4 ethnicities that existed before the flood. Much more than lost stories, these groups hold secrets that challenge what we believe we know, hidden between the lines of the Book of Genesis and other nearly forgotten ancient texts. Imagine an era where humans and celestial beings coexisted, giving rise to an ethnic and cultural diversity that, in some way, still echoes in our own history. In this video, we will understand what Genesis itself suggests: that there was more to the story, an ancestral wisdom, and a connection with the divine that left deep marks. If until now you thought the story was already complete, get ready to discover what remained in the shadows and understand how these mysterious ethnicities influence our humanity to this day. This is not just another old story. It's a unique and intriguing insight that could transform the way we view ancient scripture. If you're ready to discover this version that few have heard, stay until the end. This knowledge can forever change your perception of our origins. The story of the 4 ethnics before the flood is an enigma that fascinates, intrigues, and, for many, reveals part of the roots of humanity. When talking about these forgotten civilizations, we are not just exploring ancient peoples, but rather traces of a society that, according to some biblical texts and ancient sources, existed before the great universal catastrophe known as the flood. Imagining these cultures and ethnicities is like opening a window to a time where the world was very different from what we know today. There are those who say that these people, although extinct, left deep marks on human history and culture. These ethnicities before the flood had unique cultural and spiritual characteristics, shaped by a period unparalleled in what we know of human evolution. Ancient texts such as the Book of Genesis suggest that these people may have developed an advanced understanding of the world around them, integrating elements of science, art, and spirituality. It is fascinating to think that, in that period, each ethnic group had a relationship with nature and the universe in a way that today, to us, seems mystical. What if, by trying to understand these societies, we discovered more about who we are? The most interesting thing about the 4 ethnics before the flood is the fact that, according to some sources, these cultures coexisted, but possibly with very different customs and worldviews. Imagine what it would be like to live in a time when diversity was the foundation of society. Perhaps the influences of these ethnicities have contributed to the formation of traditions and values that are still present in some modern cultures. To this day, we seek to understand how these ancient people saw the world and how their values were preserved over the centuries, even after their extinction. Another curious point is how these people, according to theories, may have related to unknown forces or even entities that defy our modern understanding. In texts such as the Book of Enoch, for example, there are mentions of celestial beings who interacted with humans. This relationship may have given rise to the famous giants and, consequently, increased the ethnic and cultural complexity of the time. Such mysteries only reinforce how rich the diversity of the 4 ethnics before the flood was and the impact they left on the popular imagination. As we deepen this knowledge, we enter a world of mystery and discovery, where each new piece of information leads us to question and explore further. What if these ancient people held the key to understanding some of the questions that still haunt us today? As we move forward, we go into detail about Adam's bloodlines and their implications. The narrative of Adam's lineages transports us to the beginning of humanity, where the roots of the first ethnicities begin to form based on the choices and trajectories of their descendants. This account talks about 2 main lines: that of Cain, which symbolizes ambition and the forces of the material world, and that of Set, which represents spirituality and the search for wisdom. Imagine a society where the impact of each lineage is felt in every aspect of everyday life. These 2 origins shape the direction of ethnicities and open space for different interpretations of good and evil. In Cain's lineage, we see a history marked by struggle and survival, where the focus was on overcoming material challenges. Many believe that this lineage was responsible for boosting the development of the tools and technology of the time, seeking to dominate the environment around them. The antediluvian civilizations felt the influence of this Cainite lineage, which perhaps brought with it traces of a humanity that prioritized pragmatism. It is as if brute strength and ingenuity were the core values of this group, which faced nature without fear of taking risks. The lineage of Set, in contrast, may have been the cradle of a tradition more focused on reflection and spiritual connection. This second line was less concerned with conquering the physical world, and more with developing inner wisdom and connection with the divine. These ancient societies, when living with these two lineages, were able to feel the fusion of these traits in their own culture. This line was dedicated to spiritual practices and rituals that perhaps influenced important branches of ancestral wisdom, now forgotten but still perceived in a subtle way in various traditions. The coexistence between these two lineages, so opposite, undoubtedly created tensions, but it also led to the creation of an extremely complex and diverse society. Imagine the different ways of thinking and acting that emerged from this interaction. In pre-diluvian civilizations, the coexistence of these lineages may have generated not only friction, but also boosted important advances in the search for a balance between body and soul. It is as if the society was driven by an eternal search between the material and the spiritual. As we explore more deeply the paths taken by these two lineages, we begin to understand how each of them contributed to the formation of the ethnicities of that time. These influences served as a basis for a rich and nuanced ethnic diversity. This mosaic prepares us to understand the various facets of the first civilizations and their role in human diversity, bringing us closer to the origin of what we call cultural identity today. Now, let's look at the diversity that grew from this common root. The ethnic diversity that emerges from Adam and Eve is a theme that generates both curiosity and reflection. The idea that they had a mixed appearance opens up space to think about the incredible physical and cultural variety that could arise in their descendants. It's almost as if they were the seed of a spectrum of characteristics that would form the foundations of humanity. Thus, different genetic and cultural traits manifested themselves, and it was from this rich initial combination that the first civilizations and ethnicities emerged, each with its own peculiarities. Some theories suggest that in their first children, there was already notable diversity. The first antediluvian civilizations, as they expanded, developed unique characteristics that varied depending on the environment in which they lived. For example, people who inhabited warmer regions were more adapted to sunlight, while those in colder regions had traits that facilitated their survival in harsh climates. Thus, physical diversity was not just a matter of appearance, but a vital adaptation that shaped each ethnicity according to its habitat. This diversity was also expressed in cultural and spiritual aspects, reflecting the different worldviews that each group developed. For example, some antediluvian peoples had beliefs based on the worship of natural elements, such as the sun and moon, while others focused on rituals linked to inner spirituality and ancestral wisdom. This plurality enriched relationships between ethnicities and created a web of knowledge that transcended time, influencing cultures to this day. An interesting detail is how ethnic diversity was seen at that time as a gift and an advantage. Each group brought a specialty, a unique skill that, when combined with that of other peoples, created complete and harmonious societies. This concept of unity and diversity can teach us a lot about tolerance and respect today. If we think about it, this variety was a source of strength and resilience for early civilizations, showing how diversity strengthens rather than divides. As we delve deeper into these diverse roots, we begin to glimpse the contours of four main ethnicities, each with its defining characteristics and unique contribution to the antediluvian period. These ethnicities formed the foundation of a humanity still in formation, but which already showed the richness of its differences. Let's, then, take a closer look at these four major ethnicities that existed before the flood. When we talk about the four main ethnicities before the flood, we delve into a rich and fascinating diversity. Each had unique physical and cultural characteristics, representing a vibrant mosaic of traits that existed long before the world completely changed. These ethnicities are often described in ancient sources, such as the Presemitic, which resembles what we today call Semitic, and the Prem, with dark skin characteristics and adaptability to intense environments. Each group contributed something of its own and essential, forming the basis of what we know about antediluvian diversity. The Presemitic, for example, were a fair-skinned people, similar to modern Semites, known for their adaptability and spiritual wisdom. These groups had a strong connection with the land and lived in harmony with the environment, as if nature were their guide and protector. Today, some cultural traditions can trace their roots to these practices of respect and balance that began with Presemitism. To imagine life in these times is to glimpse a people who use knowledge and intuition to prosper, preserving values that still resonate in some parts of the world. The Prem, in contrast, was known for its physical endurance and strong cultural presence. They were dark-skinned people, adapted to hot and challenging environments. Their survival skills were reflected not only in their physique, but also in their social structures and the rituals they performed. Many believe that practices and customs of modern African people may have roots in Prem traditions, which combine physical strength with deep spirituality. The way they revered their ancestors and nature reveals a deep respect for life, creating a legacy that connects with some contemporary cultures. The Preoptics brought a fascinating combination of European and Asian features, representing an ethnicity that mixed physical and cultural characteristics of the two continents. They developed rudimentary technology and living strategies that combined the best of these worlds. Many feel that these groups pioneered adaptive survival tools and methods. The imagination soars when thinking about its villages, built with ingenuity, where skills from different continents came together to create a resilient and inventive society. Finally, there was the mixed group descended from Adam and Eve, which contained a little of each characteristic of the other ethnicities. This group symbolized integration and miscegenation, showing that diversity was a reality from the beginning. In them, we see the embryo of modern humanity, where different traits combine to form a new perspective on the world. As we explore the role of these ethnicities, we get closer to the mysteries of ancient texts and what they tell us about the interaction between celestial beings and humans. These mysteries continue to unfold and take us deeper into the complexity of the era. The mysteries of antediluvian civilizations are deeply intertwined with ancient texts, such as the Book of Enoch, which propose intriguing interactions between celestial beings and humanity. These records suggest that, before the flood, relationships between humans and entities from beyond the grave were closer than we imagine. The texts speak of celestial beings that descended to Earth, and some scholars believe that these interactions resulted in the emergence of hybrid beings, known as giants. This detail opens up a new dimension of understanding about the period, questioning how much these events influenced the social and ethnic structure of the time. The giants, described as a result of the union between human and celestial beings, represented an enigmatic force that possessed both physical and spiritual power. Many believe that these beings were responsible for significant changes in ancient societies, shaping not only their military strength, but also their beliefs and fears. Imagine living in a time where these hybrids walked among men, symbolizing the closeness between the human and the divine. These figures, often described as protective and, at the same time, threatening, profoundly influenced the imagination and values of antediluvian ethnicities. In addition to the giants, other mysteries are mentioned in these texts, such as superhuman abilities, advanced knowledge, and complex ritualism practices. For example, the Book of Enoch describes rituals and technologies that defy the knowledge of the time, indicating a wisdom that was perhaps granted by these celestial beings. For some, this explains why civilizations at that time demonstrated an astonishing understanding of the cosmos and the forces of nature. Such skills, passed down from generation to generation, could be the key to understanding part of what we today call lost knowledge or ancestral wisdom. These ancient texts, however, not only illuminate the past, but also raise questions that resonate in the present. Was all this outside influence a benefit or a curse? The ancients seemed to revere but also fear this knowledge and the unknown forces it brought with it. This reflects a duality that still persists: the desire to know more about the universe and, at the same time, the fear of what this wisdom might cost us. Perhaps, in the teachings of these people, we can find a clue on how to balance our own knowledge with our human essence. With all these revelations, we enter a new stage of exploration that goes beyond texts and traces. What we learn here takes us on a journey of self-knowledge and questioning our deepest beliefs. After all, if these ancient influences shaped the first ethnicities, what else could they reveal about our own origin and purpose? These questions invite us to reflect on what we don't yet know, and to keep an open mind for what may come to light in the next dive into the pages of history. So, now that you know the four ethnicities that existed before the flood and the mysteries they carry, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Does our own history hold more secrets that we have not yet realized? The idea that our origin may be linked to something much larger invites us to reflect and even seek answers beyond what is on the surface. Think about how these accounts influence our culture, our spirituality, and even our beliefs about who we are and where we come from. If this content moved you, if it awakened the desire to know more, share your impressions in the comments. After all, this journey of discovery is even more enriching when we exchange ideas and learn together. And of course, if you want to continue unraveling mysteries that few know about, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This way you don't miss anything and continue accessing content that can transform your understanding of the past and yourself.